Hey folks, I'm here to talk to you about starting your um, vector portrait assignment. So the first thing you're going to have to do is open Gravit Designer. So if you need to go to designer.gravit.io and then click Start, and you're going to come to this screen. Now the first thing you need to do is open your photograph that you plan to use for your portrait. So wherever that is saved, you need to get it into Gravit. So for me, that works best when I click on Open from Computer, and then this is my camera roll pictures from because I just used my laptop to take my picture. Okay, um, if you have FileStream, Google Drive FileStream installed on your computer, you can get it there. You can download your picture onto your desktop of your computer. Whatever is going to work for you is going to be different for everybody, but you need to be able to get to the point where you can get the photograph in to Gravit. Okay, so I'm working with this picture. And I got my photo here. This is how I have felt through most of quarantine, is yelling at my computer and trying to get my students to turn in their work. So this is what I'll be working with today. Couple things to note: you can ignore the background. You are not dealing with the background. You are strictly dealing with faces and shoulders and necks and hands. Okay. Um, as you practiced, you're going to be using the pen tool to do this. Okay. Now I've already started working on mine, so I'm going to open from my cloud here. So here I've already started doing some tracing. All right. And I'm going to show you a few things. So you're going to try to stick to the pen tool. The first thing I want to show you, just to get it out of the way, is the freehand tool. Okay, you may have messed with this or explored this in when you were doing uh, your practice. And the freehand tool is pretty tempting, okay, because the freehand tool allows you to just freehand draw lines, kind of like you're used to, and then it turns them into vector lines. Here is the problem. When I click out here, these lines are way less smooth than, say, my pen tool lines that I've used those Bezier curves with, okay? So my hairline right here and the top of my head, I tried using the freehand tool on those, and it does not look as good and as smooth and controlled and regulated as the lines I used for the rest of my image. So if you had um, a Wacom tablet like we have at school, if you had a pen tablet at home, I'd say, yeah, go ahead and use the freehand tool. Or maybe if you have a device where you have a thing to draw on the screen, that would be fine as well, or you could draw right on the monitor. But if you're working with a mouse, I would avoid the freehand tool if you can, okay? So I'm going to delete these lines, and I'm going to give you a couple pointers about doing your outlining, okay? So my first thing you should know is, let me make this hide, okay, is here's my photograph, okay? This is my photograph layer, the very bottom. And I want to lock it. Okay, so make sure it's locked so that you don't move it around while you're working. It can get very annoying if you accidentally move your photograph. Okay, so I'm going to try to stick to my pen tool. And my second piece of advice is zoom in. Okay, get up close to what you're doing. Third piece of advice: remember that space bar turns your cursor into a little hand so that you can move the picture around as needed. Okay, so if I'm going to work on this eye, show my pen tool. And when you're doing eyes, you want to do the upper lid. Okay. On the lower lid, you want to follow where the white of the eye meets the where the white of the eye meets the backspace and try this again. Okay, so when I'm doing the eye, I want to do the upper lid. And then I want to follow the lower lid where the white of the eye meets the lower lid. So there's going to be kind of your eye is going to have a little bit of what we call a hood to it. Okay. Let me hit enter here. And if I need to move this, I can tweak it a little bit to get it more the shape that I need. Okay, but when you're doing eyes, you want to keep in mind that almond shape, and you also want to make sure that you're showing where the upper lid sort of overlaps the lower lid. Okay. Um, the other thing is you don't want to make circles for your iris. Whoops. So when you're doing this, you want your iris to kind of have two sides to it, kind of like parentheses. So I've got one side for my iris. I'll do the other side over here because you cannot see the entire iris all at once. Okay, that generally someone, unless you are doing a picture where the person's eyes are very wide open, you're not going to want to do that. Another thing I want you to do while you're working is make sure that you are adjusting your lines so that they look nice and neat. So right here where I've got what looks like a fish hook, I'm going to have to adjust that to make it look more normal. Because I want to make sure it intersects nicely with this edge. Whoops. And add and subtract anchors as needed to get the line to do what you want it to do. Okay, and you can see right here, you know, it doesn't line up perfectly with the eyelid. I could continue to mess with that, but in some ways you're simplifying the drawing a little bit. I still want it to look realistic, but in some ways we are simplifying, okay? Okay, so I've already done the eye on this side. You do want to do creases and wrinkles and folds. These pictures are not necessarily meant to be totally flattering. We want them to be, um, you know, very expressive, and that's going to mean your skin is going to wrinkle and fold in places. Okay, so do the wrinkles and do that kind of folds, those kind of folds and things. Okay. All right. Now, on my other eye over here, on this side, I've got a pupil and I've got a little highlight. In fact, I want this highlight to have no border. Okay. So what are you going to do for pupils? If you'd like to use the shape tool, okay, to make a perfect circle for your pupil, that's okay, as long as you can see the whole pupil. If you can't, you're going to have to hand draw it. But what I'm going to do here is select both of these things. So I'm holding the shift key while I select them. I'm going to copy it. Oh, it told me I have to use the shortcut Control C. I was trying to do it so that you could see it, but just use Control C. So Control C or Command C if you're on a Mac, Control C or Command V if you're on a Mac, and then I can paste it over here. And what's nice about this is now I know that both my pupils are the same size. Um, if you're just guessing at making the two pupils the same size, it's going to look a little weird. Okay. So I would make the pupil and the little shine on one side and then copy and paste it onto the other. Your actual eyes, like the outline of the eyes, might be slightly different sizes, but your pupil is going to it should be the same size on both sides. For eyebrows, don't try to do every single individual hair. Try to kind of make the outline of a whole eyebrow. In my case, they kind of hide behind my glasses a little bit, so that makes my life a little easier. Um, I can just do the top half of them. Maybe I'll go to like here. Okay, connect it to there. And I'll fill that in later with color. Okay, and I have a lot less eyebrow on this side. I'll come to those in a minute. All right, I also want to show you noses. How should you do a nose? I'm going to show you the way that most people in my classes start off doing noses, and they do this. My line turned white. Oh, no, it didn't. Okay, they do something that looks kind of like this. They try to do like the entire nose in this like, fifth grade drawing kind of way. And then when I turn off the photo, you'll see it doesn't look very good. Okay, come in. That nose doesn't look great. Okay. You can do better than that style of nose. You don't have to draw the entire nose. Okay. Let me come in Z and undo all this, get rid of it. So when you do a nose, less is more. Okay. So I will do sort of the nostril on this side. Okay. I'll do a nostril on this side. I'm going to do the tip of my nose right here. I'm going to bring it up a little bit past the nostril lines. Okay. In my particular case, I've got a little bit of a crease right here. I'm going to curve it a smidge so it looks natural. You're not going to have too many straight lines on these guys, so make sure you're curving almost every line, even if it's just a tiny bit. Okay, and I'm going to do a little adjusting here to make this more natural looking. So here's the thing about noses. Generally speaking, you don't want all the lines to connect to each other. They don't look natural when you do that, okay? All right, that looks pretty good. Command A, oops, sorry, Command Z, or Command minus. I'm gonna zoom out. All right, so let me turn off my photo. That nose looks a lot more natural than my last one. All right. And then lastly, I want to show you some stuff about teeth. If your image has teeth, let me show you what people normally do. I'm going to do it as quickly as I can. Okay, normally people do one of these. They trace every individual tooth. And then, let me turn this off. Oh, no fill. Okay. They trace every individual tooth like this. Let me start over here on this one. Okay. And what happens is your mouth ends up looking kind of like it's full of chiclets or rocks. Okay. Which is not what you want. So let me turn this off, photo off. You can imagine how this would look. I'd look like some kind of I don't know. It would just look terrible. I'd have all these big toothy teeth. So here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to do every individual tooth, okay? Let me turn this back on. Zoom back in. Delete these. Okay. When you do teeth, here's what I want you to do. You're gonna go along the bottom edge of the top row of teeth. And I'm trying to do this relatively quickly for you guys. I'm just going to connect it. Oh, there's one more tooth right here. Let's get that one. Okay, enter. And then I'm going to do my gums at the top. All right, so I'll click right here. Again, make sure everything has a little bit of a curve to it. In my experience, Bezier curves are extra good for gums because they are that nice rounded top. Okay, so my gum kind of goes behind my lip here, so I'm going to start a new line over on this side. Okay. Enter. I might even just leave the bottom teeth untouched. Okay. So let me go turn off my photo again, turn that off. That looks a lot more normal than doing every individual tooth. So you kind of want to ignore these lines in between the teeth. Okay, this is going to look more normal to do it like this rather than doing every individual tooth. Okay, so I'm going to finish up this last section of my head over here, and then I will, and notice how I zoom way out because now I need to do much larger lines. So I'm going to zoom out and work on that section. All right, so now that I have added all of my lines, I've done all my outlining. Quick note on hair, you do not need to draw every single hair on the head, but you can see like my hair as I move across here, it changes color in this zone. So where it sort of shifts color because there's a shadow, I might add a line there. But other than that, you don't really need to add a ton of lines for hair. You want to get the general shape of the hair, but you don't have to do every single hair on the head. And you can see that over here, I just ignored a lot of these sort of flyaway hairs. So don't feel like you have to do every single hair on the head, okay? With fingernails, you can do where the nail starts to grow and you can do the tip of the fingernail, but I wouldn't do a whole lot in between. You want to leave this empty space in between. Again, it's just going to make it look more natural. Okay, so once you have done all of your lines, and I missed some lines on my face here. Once you've done all of your lines, what you're going to do is adjust your line thickness for the whole image. Let me just fix this. Okay, so zoom out so I can see everything. All right, so you're going to adjust your line thickness. Play around with it. I'm going to try setting this on 3. Oh, I have to Command A. So you're going to Command A to select all. I'm going to try setting this on 3. Hit enter and see how it looks. And I'm going to make sure I turn off my photo. And that looks pretty good. You're going to want some relatively thick lines because we're going to try to hide colors behind them. So once you've thickened up your lines, you might notice places where lines should connect or they don't, or places where lines are overlapping too much. Okay, so this is where we start to get into that adjustment time. So I'm going to click on some of these things and just move anchors so that lines are hidden behind each other. Okay, I don't want to see these overlapping lines. It's kind of a sign that you didn't take the extra time to refine your work. And it's important that you refine your work. So you're going to kind of go over the whole thing. I find it easiest to kind of start at the top and work my way down to the bottom. So I do this in a semi-organized fashion. And just check for places where I've got gaps and places where it's overlapping too much. All right. But do that after you've thickened up your lines. Okay. So that's all you're going to worry about this week is getting your outlining done. And this takes a while. Okay. So what that means is here's what I'd like you to do. On Wednesday, I'd like you to give me sort of a progress update. I do not expect you to have this completed by Wednesday. So I'm going to do a little progress grade on Wednesday. So just as always, on Wednesday sometime, click share and take your link. Make sure allow to save is clicked off. Share your link with me in the new spreadsheet just to give me a progress update. And then I expect all of the tracing to be done no later than Sunday. Okay. If you really get into it and you finish it all on Tuesday, please give me a progress update on both occasions anyway, just because I need to have 2 grades. So if you finish early, you're just going to end up submitting it twice. Okay? So you have the entire week to finish your tracing. So I expect everything to be refined, all of those overlaps and gaps fixed, and then next week we'll get into coloring. Okay, guys? Email with questions or check YouTube if you're trying to figure out how to use Gravit and you don't want to wait for me. And make sure you save the work to the Gravit cloud. Okay, so file, save to cloud as, and then you just give it a name. All right. So, hope that's helpful. Email with questions as always, and happy drawing.